Kancha, Wapastim Tsikasun. My name is Whitehorse, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the 13 moons because a lot of people ask me about the teachings behind the 13 moons, and at times it's difficult to fully describe uh, Nihiawiwin or the Cree ways with the teachings behind the 13 moons. Because we were taught originally we had 13 moon calendar that followed the yearly moon cycle or the lunar cycle, and having been very much colonized myself and having had the Gregorian calendar or the regular calendar we see with the 12-month calendar and the uh, with the 12 months in the year and 365 days. Uh, our traditional calendar or our traditional teachings are very much rooted in that traditional lunar calendar where we follow the 13 moons, because in one year we have 13 full moons, and traditionally we followed that cycle as our yearly calendar, and very a lot of our teachings were centered around those 13 moons or those 13 full moons. So with being so grounded into that and brought up with that Gregorian 12-month calendar, it's really hard to make that shift and explain what the 13 uh, lunar year calendar looked like to my predecessors, my ancestors, uh, my Cree ancestors. And with that 13 full moon, although the Gregorian calendar doesn't follow it, it does make an attempt to try and change the calendar to fit uh, crudely around those 13 lunar cycles, and that's where we see the leap year come in, and we gain a day every 4 years just to try and shift that Gregorian calendar or our standard calendar back to fit closer to those traditional 13 lunar moons, uh, to realign the calendar with seasonal changes. So the easiest way to make sense of the fragmented teachings that we retain or that we still have from our ancestors about the 13 moons is to describe how, as Nihiawak, as Cree people, our tracking of the passage of time is very much governed by our connection to the moon and the lunar cycles, uh, both physically, geographically, and celestially, how we connect to our environment. So we are not governed by the passage of day and night, but by the moon cycles, so each full moon. And we're taught that the connection was shown to us through the spirit of Musum Miskanach, or in English, grandfather turtle. Now, there's a legend about Musum Miskanach that tells about how how after the legend of the four directions. So if you've learned the legends, our legends follow a timeline from when we were first put on this earth, and it's a timeline and legends that you can follow. So we're told that after the legend of the four directions and the two-leggeds were first put on this earth from our creator, and just after the coming of Trickster, that with that story of Trickster, the at that time, Creator wasn't pleased with how poorly the two-leggeds were doing. So uh, Simantu, our Creator, decided to wash away the world and build it anew. So this great flood came, and there's a legend that tells about how Trickster uh, sailed with the animals on this huge log, and how Wachask, brought a handful of dirt up and remade the land by putting that handful of dirt on the back of Musum Miskanak, or grandfather turtle, and from there how our land was created, and which is why many of our indigenous nations, not only the Cree, call our land Turtle Island, because in that legend we are now sitting on the back of this huge turtle where Muskrat had put that dirt to build our the land that we walk on. However, that I've asked many different elders if they remember that legend, and I haven't come across an elder that remembers that legend. So unfortunately, we just got pieces of that legend, but we still get the idea of how that legend came to be. And we're told that when, after Wetask had put this dirt on the back of this uh, Muso Miskanak, or this grandfather turtle, and the land was made, that we're told that how the two-leggeds were given a second chance, and they were again put on the back of this huge turtle where the land, which was now our land. And we were taught that in order to help us survive better and to plan and to be more successful on this world, we were sent to follow teachings, uh, which were represented by the trail that was laid out on this turtle, that followed the cycle of the moons. Because on almost every turtle, if you look at the turtle, and this is true for almost every turtle, the larger plates on its back, there are all turtles have 13 larger plates on its back. And for indigenous people, we see this, we were taught that this is the reminder uh, of that time we were put on the back of this turtle, and how these moon cycles we're supposed to follow was going to help us to be successful and live healthy and happy on this land. So on the back of the turtle with the larger plates, we see 13 plates representing each of the 13 moons. And then on the outer edges of the turtle's back, almost every turtle will have 28 smaller plates surrounding the 13 bigger plates. So we were taught that this representation is, of course, the larger plates representing each full moon, each of the 13 full moons, and then the smaller plates, each one representing one day between each full moon, because we have 28 days in between each full moon. And we're told that this is represented on the back of Kahkiao Miskanach, or all turtles, to this day. So unfortunately, we've lost that legend about Musum Miskanach, and those teachings on how that how those teachings were passed on to two-leggeds. And hopefully one day we can reclaim that legend as indigenous people. But we're told that on the turtle's back shows us the pathway to 1 year, and to follow that pathway, and we'll be able to interact and predict our environment, and understand our environment better with the changing of days and with the changing of each lunar cycle, or the changing of each season. And this is how we're connected to the turtle. So, of course, that that teaches us that in a lunar year, there are 28 days between each full moon, and in a lunar calendar, there are 13 full moons in each yearly cycle. So that's how, as Nihiawak, as Cree people, we were traditionally taught to measure the passage of time through the lunar cycle, in order for us to be able to anticipate the coming season and the coming environmental changes. So I've asked many different elders and knowledge keepers again if they remember that legend, and like I said, hopefully we can one day uh, reclaim that legend. So this brings us to the 13 moon traditional lunar calendar. Uh, with our very first moon, uh, it's the very first moon in our lunar calendar we call Mantupism, or God's moon. So with this moon, we're taught to focus deeply on Wahkohtuin and Wahkohtamuin. So with each moon has a special teaching behind it and a special energy that our our grandmother moon, Nohom Tipskau Pisum, our grandmother moon, gives to us through her healing rays. And with the first moon in our lunar calendar, Mantupisum, that moon, during that moon, we're taught as indigenous people that we need to focus on Wahkohtamun and Wahkohtuin. So that's our Wahkohtuin is our connections to our relatives, our immediate family, our brothers, our sisters, our grandparents, that immediate family, our uh, Wahkamaganak, our family. So we're taught that we need to focus on our family as well as Wahkohtamuin. And that Wahkohtamuin means our connection or our relationship to all other people, but not just people, all other beings. That means our two-legged relatives, our four-legged relatives, our flying relatives, our swimming relatives, all of those relatives, living things around us, even the plants, the animals, uh, the usni, the rocks, the mountains, all of these things we're taught these are our relatives and we need to focus on those during that first moon of Mantupism or God's moon. So with Wahkohtuin, we are reminded during this moon to look closely at our family connections and the connections we have to our close relatives, our brothers and our sisters, our parents, our grandparents, and to try and strengthen or build on those connections during this first moon of Mantupism. Um, we're taught that we need to look at those bonds because these are the people that were there when we took our first steps. And these are the people, probably the only people that will be with us when we take our last breath on this earth. So we need to look closely and build those bonds and make and be reminded of our family, our close family, and to never take them for granted. Uh, we don't want to leave this world. One of the things our elders always teach us is uh, in the TP teachings, we're taught that in our last stages of life, the last thing we want to leave this earth with is regrets. So during Mantupism, God's moon, we want to focus on our family, our close family relations, because we don't want to leave this world with any regrets because we'll take those regrets with us onto our next existence. So our elders teach us don't have regrets, especially when it comes to close family members. With Wakohtamwen, we are reminded during this Mantupism, or this first moon, to take a step back from everything and look at our connection to everything around us. All of the people in our lives, look at the connections we have with them and how strong they are or how weak they are. Look at our connections to the living world around us. Look at our connections to the animals. Look at our connections we have to the plants or the trees, to nature. Look at our connections. So if we find we have little or no connections to our relatives, the plants or the trees, then we're reminded during this moon to try and strengthen those connections and try and go out in nature a lot more and rebuild that wakohtamo and with our brothers and sisters, the plants and the trees and the animals. and to take a good look at where we fit in this world during this moon, Mantu Pisum, the first moon. So again, we're reminded, take that step back, reflect on everything in your life and see where do you fit in this world? And more importantly, where do you want to fit? And look at fitting better in this world in a holistic manner by building our connections to everything around us. So again, going back to Wakkohtoin and Wakkohtamo and all of those connections we have. So the main teaching during this moon is again, pause, take a look at our connections and relationships. So those that have water teachings understand the deep connection as well between the water teachings and the moon teachings, because with uh, Nukhum Nipi, grandmother water, and Nukhum Tipskau Pisum, grandmother moon, they have a very strong bond. And those who have the water teachings know that uh, if you've been gifted those teachings, one of the first things we're taught is about that connection that water has to the moon. And there's many teachings with the water teachings, but I wanted to talk about the water teachings because of the connection to the 13 moons and how we use that connection to help ourselves with sicknesses or with helping ourselves to become healthier both mentally, spiritually, and physically, because we are taught to use Nochum Tipskau Pisam's energy or the moon's energy uh, through water to collect that energy uh, and to make maskihi nipi or medicine water that can help us in a very specific way for each moon, because every single moon has specific energy that'll help specific ailments or problems that we have as Nihiawak or Isinuak as people. So when we infuse our water with them with the energy from Nukhon Tipskau Pisam or the full moon, uh, and make this medicine water. Of course, we pray over the water, we smudge it, and we ask Nukhon Tipskau Pisam to put her energy or her healing energy into that water during the full moon. And uh, Creator grants her the ability to be able to help us through that water to make medicine water, uh, uh, teaching us and giving us healing gifts. So during Mantupism, the water teachings teach us uh, that Nukhum Tipskau Pism or Grandmother Moon will send healing energy to help maintain and build connections or relationships with everything around us during this moon. So we're taught that this healing water can be used at this time uh, to be used when connections are weak or relationships are weak and suffering and strained or and maybe in broken danger of being broken. So the medicine water we collect at this time was often collected and used to make maskiki nipi healing water to help people uh, getting past old family feuds or feuds with friends, or helping couples who may be having difficulty in their relationship to help them build their relationship and have a stronger connection. So the moon water we collect during Bantu Pisum was specialized and used specifically for that. So those are all the teachings that I have around just the 13 moons themselves, as well as the very first moon, Mantupism. We'll go on further and I'll talk about each of the moon separately and what each moon means and what each moon helps us with throughout the lunar cycle. So, thank you very much for listening and learning. Kinanas kong tinawa ka, Kiyaw.